Yeah, so today we're talking about the 5 cantrips we wish that we had in real life. Or is it that we wish we could use? Or is it the same thing? What's the thing? Is it 5 cantrips we wish we had? 5 cantrips we wish we could use? 5 cantrips. What's the list? Why are you laughing at me? You can't be laughing at me already.
I'm just taking it in. Hi, everyone. My name is Jerod.
And I'm Autumn.
And welcome to Coaches and Dragons.
Coaches and Dragons.
We're so excited for this week's episode. We're going to talk about the 5 D&D cantrips that we wish we had in real life. So Autumn and I just both took a look at our spell lists, saw which cantrips would we like to cherry pick from, and we ranked them from number 5 to number 1 to see which cantrips we would really like to have in real life.
The thing is, are we going to have ones that are the same? Are we going to have things different? Are we going to learn big things about each other that are going to be shocking?
What do the cantrips that we pick have to say about what we really want in our real life?
What do they say about what we don't want in our life or who we don't want in our life? I feel like my list is full of ones that I probably would use almost daily. Some of them might be a couple times weekly.
Yeah. No, I think my criteria was D&D cantrips I would love to have in real life. And so it had to meet my IRL level.
Yeah.
This is not a yeah, we can talk about the criteria as we get into it, but that was how I understood the assignment for today.
Yes, that was also how I took the assignment. I think I want to note that there was while there's ones that would be just fun to just have and know that you could do, there was this reality of I'm not going to kill a person, and I also am not going to bring the dead back to life, because I feel like that's a line I don't know if I'm trying to live with. So so excited to see what you came up with versus me. But I don't think this is a spoiler alert kind of situation, but coming up with this list, I definitely was am I reading myself? There's something really interesting about one, I'm learning a lot about what I don't like to do in my life. And then 2, also really, girl, you could do anything and you're that's what I want. So I'm excited to be very vulnerable, I think, with my list, and very exposing.
So let's start there with rank number 5 on the list. Autumn, what cantrip did you choose?
Okay, I went with Sword Burst. Now, this might be pandemic girl talking, I don't know, but there was something incredibly pleasing about the idea of having a way to keep people 5 feet away from me when I don't want them around. So I loved the idea of just being able to be oh, Sword Burst, and just getting people out of my frickin' way. The other thing that I think really would excite me about having this is I love being on the floor near the stage at concerts. I like rock music. I like metal music. I'm terrified of mosh pits. Sword Burst, I feel gets me where I want to be, and I don't have to worry about people messing with all of this.
Because you hit them with a bunch of spectral blades.
I mean, look, the blades are there. They can see them. If they choose to come within that 5-foot radius, that's on them.
Love it. Sword Burst, your new cantrip for social distancing.
Sword Burst. Yes. For the next pandemic.
Or your next concert.
Or the next concert. Or the next standing in line. What about you, Jerod? What is your number 5?
I chose Mending. So it's a cantrip that I've been eager to use because I've been playing an artificer now, and I think I have more of a use for it, to where it's we actually want to repair things. But I just love the idea of if I could magically repair stuff, that seems extremely handy to have in real life. So I went with Mending. Seems it's also something that I could discreetly hide, it would not be out in the open. Seems a little bit more utilitarian than an Eldritch Blast, perhaps, which is the other cantrip I probably use extensively in D&D. So yeah, I went with Mending as my number 5 cantrip I wish I had in real life.
Okay, if we're talking about something you would use maybe regularly, what do you think you would use mending on most often?
Mending, I would love to have it as a backup plan. Like, oh, my clumsy butt just broke a bunch of stuff. Like, mending. Like, almost like a walking like TV guide infomercial of like, has this ever happened to you? Mending. Like all the crap I could break.
I love
Um,
that the thing like the more you know banner that flies and it's like mending.
mending. If you're doing mending, right, it's also like, oh, broken zipper on your favorite backpack or your pants.
Ooh.
Oh, flat tire, mending. Like, I think there's a lot of like little instances where it's like, this might be more helpful IRL.
Let's switch up the order. What is your number four?
Number four. So, as a coach, how could I not choose guidance?
Girl, when I tell you that my number four is guidance too.
No,
Yeah!
no. See, it was one of those things when I was reading guidance, I was like, okay, low key, this is like a great little spell. I think also as a coach, I want to acknowledge like I don't seek to use divine influences or like outside beings to like change your roles or add to it. But it's like, yeah, if I could get a little extra boomph to my coaching practice for everyone else, like, of course it's going to be in the form of guidance. But I couldn't not have it on the list, and I feel like it was like more of service to folks than mending was. So I went for guidance as number four.
Guidance, absolutely my number four. Partially, I think it's coach life. You got to have guidance in there. So absolutely. Um, it also is a little bit selfish where it's like guidance on myself for when I need that little boost. I'm about to go do something awesome. But it is like I think about it as that magical little boost. Like if I've got a friend that's getting ready to go do something, being able to tap them and just be like, you got this. It's like a little sprinkle, and then they feel that little oomph that hits, and you just know that, you know, that that D4 roll might not do anything. I've had guidance on a D2 on like a roll of two, so sometimes guidance doesn't help. It's the
It's
thought
not.
that counts.
It's nice when you get to roll two twos on two different dice.
Exactly.
That's all.
So I love, of course, the coaches pick guidance. Part of me was hoping that there would be this kismet moment where we both like had a similar one. So I'm really happy that happened, and I'm happy that it happened on guidance.
I just want to let you know I'm really touched by the guidance you've offered me over the years. So I'm glad it also landed at number four.
Yeah.
I'm also not going to request guidance from you when we're at a concert, a mosh pit, or any place where you're really eager for social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what is your number three?
Okay. So my number three is shape water.
Ooh.
And for very specific situations that I
Huh?
hate in my life.
Okay.
I want it to fill up my coffee pot and to fill up pots when I'm cooking. And sometimes to fill up my water bottle. I feel like I would gain so much awesomeness in my life if I could just be like doing something and then bippity boppity boo, water's going into the coffee machine while I'm doing something else. And it would go perfectly. It's not going to spill. Yeah, shape water, I feel like would be like game changer for my life.
Yeah, so you can have your Fantasia moment. I'm here for it.
Exactly.
Okay, so you and I must have been on the same wavelength of using our number three slot to do things remotely. Because my number three choice was Mage Hand. So again, like, can I get that thing off of the top shelf? I'm already a pretty tall human, but like it would be nice to have a little extra reach. I think what kind of like put this a little bit lower in the ranking is that it is a spectral floating hand, and unless it's like shows up as like Master Hand from Super Smash Brothers, like, do people really want a creepy ghost hand floating around like fiddling with their things? But for handling things, it doesn't even have to be invisible to like prank stuff with. It's just like, no, I'm just gonna be like, and that's mine, and that's mine, and that's mine, just for that little extra reach. Got him. So what is your number two pick?
Okay, well, you know that this is one of my favorite cantrips to use in the campaign that we're in, and it is thaumaturgy. So that's my number two. I can't not pick this. I'm a loud talker. My voice projects. My voice booms in sometimes awkward situations when you're like, this is a quiet restaurant. Why is this girl over here being really loud? I'm sorry, I can't help it. However, there are some times where I really want to be able to be louder. I want to be able to get attention. I kind of also want to see what it would be like to have purple eyes sometimes, even though it's for a minute. I feel like if I'm doing some pictures or something, I can change my eye color. That'd be pretty cool. And I just really like the idea of having some sound effects around. Like when I do something cool, being able to have sound effects to just play wherever I am doing whatever I'm doing, like I can't not have that in my life. So yeah, I'm thaumaturgy all the way.
So now you have to share your gladiator cleric's sound effect that we hear every single session.
Oh yeah, it's that bam 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 bam.
Pew, 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 pew.
Bam 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 bam. Yeah, that's how you know she's around. What's your number 2 cantrip, Jerod?
So I like to think my number 2 cantrip is very on brand for me. And honestly, it might not need to be a cantrip since I can probably put it on when I really want to. I chose Vicious Mockery.
No, are you serious?
So I chose Vicious Mockery as my number 2 because is it like the most hyped thing on my list? No, that's why we have the number 1 slot. But like, would I gladly take this in a heartbeat? Absolutely. Because if I want to pretend like my inner drag queen is like reading someone to filth and it's got a little extra magical oomph, yes, I'm here for it. If I also like, to somebody to your point of like, if I'm really angry at somebody, would I just want to have like the right words that just cause psychic damage? Yes, I would. I would really appreciate that from time to time. And so I think for my like power fantasy, it is deeply rooted in like the perfect one-liner that puts you at disadvantage. Again, knowing how much I love puns, knowing how much I love to read things, like it felt very on brand and like, why not make it magical, right? So it's kind of like my list, I feel like has been up until my number 1 slot is largely a journey of like, what things do I just want to kind of like massage the edges on and add a little extra like magical oomph to in general. So Vicious Mockery is a representation of that.
What's the thought process? What's the thought process? Oh my gosh, Jerod. What's the thought process behind having Vicious Mockery at 2 and Guidance at 4?
Because I think Guidance to me doesn't feel as much like it's got like magical oomph to it. Like it's like, as far as spells go, like it's pretty mechanically impactful. Like for me, like dice rolling, it's like a little extra oomph. I'm not saying like I want to insult people more than I want to help them. But if we're talking about if I could make my insults sting a little bit more, yeah, I'll take that. Because I think I'm naturally more of a helpful person than an unhelpful person. Plus, it puts other people who are trying to attack me at disadvantage. So really, it's about defensive utility at the end of the day. It's about protecting everyone else with my words.
Carrie, so your Vicious Mockery is my sword burst.
Yeah, except I'm not slicing and dicing them. I'm just making like your mama jokes. So I'm glad that you want to enforce social distance through spectral blades. I just want to tell them you're ugly and I know it. And then they like.
But which hurts worse?
Okay. The scars are there. Are you saying would I rather have physical scars or emotional scars? I can pay a therapist to help with the emotional scars.
Yeah, I think we definitely don't want to be in the like trying to like compare trauma versions. So that was my bad for taking it down that route, and I apologize.
And for anyone wondering if Vicious Mockery is more effective than Sword Burst, I have to ask, is the pen not mightier than the sword?
Oh, just rolled a 19, so unless you beat a 19, you need to like and subscribe. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell. It is your number 1.
My number 1 pick is Shapewater. So I chose Shapewater as my number 1 pick because I want to live my Avatar: The Last Airbender waterbending fantasy And shape water is like the one-way ticket there, right? Because you get to like make ice, you get to make water, you get to move water, you get to make water into steam, like all of these different things that you can do with shape water. It's like I appreciated like your utilitarian examples of like I can fill a coffee pot at a distance, and I'm like I've got mage hand, I don't need that. But like I was like, okay, I think there's something about like shape water that just like, again, I would have the coolest freaking bubble bath ever. My tea would always be the temperature I need it to be. Ice cubes on demand if you're flashing. Like I could be a mix. Imagine if I was like a mixologist with shape water as like a back pocket pick.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, in terms of if we're talking about cantrips, which like give me like fulfill my power fantasy, which I realize is kind of what this list has ended up becoming for me. Shape water's at the top of the list because it's like, yeah, I would like to be a little extra Katara in my life. Thank you very much. So now, Autumn, what is your number one pick?
I realize now that I probably shouldn't have came for you so much about vicious mockery. Because my number one is minor illusion. But the reason reason it's minor illusion is because I mainly want to have it so I can create the illusion of a sound around people that are being jerks. So when that person is coming up really fast and weaving in and out of traffic and creating, like, and putting everybody at risk, I can create a sound that's kind of like, that just kind of calls them out. And listen to like, we all know that you're being really selfish right now. What would your mother think? So maybe it's a little bit of vicious mockery in with that. Or if somebody like cuts in line or something like that, there's that kind of like, everybody just saw you cut in line. They all know that you did it. And it's not a very nice way to be. But you just kind of, it's that thing where you're like, I wish they knew that I saw them and I know what they were doing, but I'm not trying to call anybody out in public, but you can just like let them know that you know.
Yeah. Okay, so thaumaturgy for when you want to be heard, and minor illusion for when you want to not be heard, but shame at a distance.
Yes, shame within 30 feet.
Okay.
But it's not so much shame. It's a way of calling out while calling in. I'm giving you the opportunity to understand that you were being a jerk. You're welcome for telling you. I hope you do better next time. Like, oh, I see you standing in front. I sure do hope that's because you're buying coffee for everybody behind you now.
I'm trying to think, when I've used minor illusion pass, I've used it a lot for sound effects. Well, actually, we used minor illusion a couple sessions ago, if you recall, when there was that stage performance that we disrupted, because Devin and our party used it to make there was a performer on stage that we did not like. And so he created a fart sound using minor illusion. I used my Druidcraft cantrip to make a skunk smell. And then another member of our party created like a gust of wind using their cantrips to like blow the curtains around. So it was like a very like complex fart joke that used 3 people using cantrips to manufacture, which I think goes to the level of like how much coordination it takes to create a really believable and committed illusion in D&D.
Yes. And also, if you are playing D and not making elaborate fart jokes, what are you doing? The other way that you can play in with minor illusion and with the fart joke is I went back to look at it. You can use your action to examine the sound or image. It could be a way to being like, who is the one that just farted? When that person next to you is like, it wasn't me. I mean, like, I heard it and I just examined it and it was you. Yeah. But it mostly would just be to shame people who are being selfish and rude to the rest of people around them.
Autumn, with your cantrip list in mind, your 5 cantrips for in real life, what do you think your cantrips say about you?
Well, this is where, like, when I was starting out, the start of our conversation, it was like, I really feel like I learned a lot about me, and it's the thing of, like, I want things to do things that I don't want to do, such as filling up water and telling people, get out of my space, and telling people you're being rude, and So it's like there was definitely this thing of like, really, we're gonna use one of these cantrip slots to fill up the coffee maker, and then I'm like, absolutely, I am. In fact, this morning when I was filling up the coffee maker again, I was like, oh my god, I wish I had shape water. This is very annoying that I have to do this. There's definitely this like, we're not gonna call it lazy. We're gonna call it efficient. Making efficient use of my sweet, sweet, valuable time. What about you? Same question back.
So I think for me, looking at the cantrips, I think for me it was like the, which again feels very on brand. Where can I get a little bit extra? And so get a little bit like extra help. Like if I break stuff, get a little bit extra help in my coaching practice. Get a little bit of extra reach when I need to grab something from distance. Get a little extra oomph when I'm just like really fed up with whatever situation is happening, until I can become like a waterbending master with shape water. Like amateur, be amateur. And I think I also was kind of prioritizing like, which ones could I use like pretty discreetly? Where it's like, if I'm the only person around with cantrips, like I'm not gonna like out myself. So
I think I want to highlight one thing that you did that is really fun, that like coming up with this list, it is really fun and playful, but I love this moment of being able to go and look at that and say, okay, looking at this, what can I actually learn? What can I actually take away? Because I think jokingly I've said like, oh wow, I feel like I'm not gonna say lazy, I'm gonna say more, but there is something in here of like, it's very obvious that I value kind of my space, my village, and my time. I think that's what I'm taking away from this. And like, that's kind of cool to be able to look at these after the fact and say like, oh yeah, that is me, and that totally makes sense.
If you look at your cantrips and you said, okay, why are these really important for me to take? Why these 5? Why in this order? I think there's a lot that you can learn about kind of maybe just some like glimmers of what you're wanting more of, maybe what you're tired and frustrated of. I like, for example, I love your example of sword burst, not because you're really into swords and want to be surrounded by swords and like, you know, when a shepherd's like, no, I just need like a little extra buffer room to like give me some space. I'll take that, please. Thank you.
Yeah. But it's cool because now I can think about like, because we know we're not going to get these cantrips in real life. There are these moments where now, anytime I'm feeling kind of closed in, like I need some space, I'm sure I'm going to imagine sword burst happening. And I'd like to think that that's going to give me a little bit of extra power, maybe even a little guidance, but a little bit of extra guidance to maybe go in and advocate for myself in that moment, and just maybe my hands just become their own swords and just kind of gently push her to be like, hey, can I get some space, please? Or maybe I'll be able to go and figure out, is there a way for me to automatically fill my coffee pot? But I like this way of, when these things happen, maybe saying like, okay, cantrip isn't real, but what can I do?
So thank you for watching this video. We hope you had a great time learning about our top 5 cantrips to use in real life. If you like this video, give us a like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more tips and tricks from Coaches and Dragons. And remember, we hope that by the end of these videos, you learn to love your character sheet. And at the end of the day, chaotic, good vibes only.
Woohoo! Bye!
Bye!
Does Mage Hand count as solo play? Do not put